This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, a busy day politically today. We heard from Colin Standish earlier in the day, Marlene Jennings, Quebec Community Groups Network, and a bunch of people, by the way, weighing in on their particular press conference, including Mitchell Brownstein, a variety of people for different reasons. I want to hear
from Russell Copeman.
And I want you to hear some of what Marlene Jennings had to say today with respect to this announced demonstration coming up May 14th. And who she expects to show up, and how do you tell when that's a success? Listen to this.
If I was the only one there, I would still consider it to be a success, because raising our voices, yes, it's a public demonstration, but it's also sending letters to the Premier. It's also the petitions table in the National Assembly, where we're talking about tens of thousands of signatures, tens of thousands of letters. That's all an expression, public expression of our concern about Bill 96.
So, Jim, what do you think? May 14th demonstration, how do you measure its success?
Well, obviously, turnout's going to be a big deal. This is a gamble. This is a gamble, because if you just get a few hundred people who come out, and remember, this is not about Montreal. This is about Quebec. This is about non-francophones in Quebec. Unless you get a decent turnout, and when I say decent turnout, in my experience, if you want to make it onto the 6 o'clock news of TVA, you better get a couple of thousand people at least, if at bare minimum. But I think it's an excellent idea. It takes it away from the politician with the mic in front of his mouth, no matter what side of the debate they're on. It takes it away from that, and it becomes a little more real. It becomes a little more palatable. Hopefully there'll be a good turnout, and hopefully it'll be a good cross-section of Quebec society, and hopefully francophones will show up, because they have a lot at stake with Bill 96 as well in terms of their kids' education. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's been a crazy day, but one that is perhaps long overdue. It's interesting when the Premier of Quebec meets the press today to say that two parties that don't even exist yet, will turn Quebec into Louisiana within 50 to 100 years, It's at that point, if Quebecers aren't seeing their Premier, their 21st century Premier, basically shaking his finger at them like some village curé in the 1830s, saying, have a lot of babies because les Anglais vont vous enterrer, là. That's how scary it is. But the flip side of that is, I see André Fortin, and he takes perhaps one of the more well-thumbed pages of the Quebec Liberal hymn book and say, well, if you vote for these guys, you're going to divide the vote, and you'll give the CAQ even more seats. Everybody's got a scary story. One of the problems with democracy is that you have choices. Some politicians don't like that. Some people don't like that. But the fact is, as I said, even when Mr. Standish was just a rumor, and now that Mr. Holness has jumped in as well, the more the merrier. That's how our system works. You don't like these guys, you don't want to split the vote, you don't have to vote for them. But this idea that somehow someone who has something different to say from the party line, no matter what side no matter what party you're on, is a threat, is a menace, give me a break. That's how things work, and that's how things should work. That said, I found it a little bit ironic hearing Francois Legault pipe up about, protecting the French language and doing whatever, when he's getting a lot of heat from the opposition himself for a flat-out, bald-faced, double-cross lie that he publicly uttered with great pomp and circumstance at the start of his term. But, yeah, you go ahead, Francois, Monsieur le Curé, and you tell me how frightened I should be, because there are some people out there who are saying things that you don't normally hear or see on TVA.
You kind of outlined here, we're going to have to wait and see how many people turn up. So I will ask you the follow-up question, which is, if you were an odds maker now, do you think we get thousands of people to turn up for this thing or not?
Well, there's two factors. One will be weather. And two, I hate to say it, but it is. Governments have been decided because of the weather. The other hand is it's great. We're talking about it for now, but life comes at you fast in the 21st century. We'll be talking about a zillion other things. They've got to stay on message. They have to pump that message out. And if they have as much support as they claim they have, They will pack that street. They will impress even the lineup editors over at TVA and Radio Canada, and all of a sudden they'll say, "Mon, man, it's Mon." You know, they're not happy, and maybe that way it'll get through, because that's one of the things that's been noticed in terms certainly of the Francophone media's coverage of Bill 96 versus the Anglos, is that it's kind of an arcane, so it's like a niche story, you know. It doesn't really affect the rest of us. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, Monarch Francois gets a lot more time saying that if you don't do as I say, you'll end up speaking English. But once again, it will be very difficult for TVA. And to be fair to TVA, you know, they go out there, they cover stuff. You get a crowd out there, they're going to cover it. I would hope that the opponents to Bill 96 get more people at their demo than the opponents to vaccine mandates in Montreal. But we'll wait and see what happens. But that's the thing. You've got to take this issue and really show the Quebecers who aren't kind of paying attention to the 6 o'clock news, that this is real. It's affecting your fellow citizens. It's affecting your neighbors. And it's something you should be paying attention to, because the next time someone wants to run over your rights, they could be yours.
I'm trying to find. So I got an email not long ago asking me whether or not, here it was, flash survey from the EPCA, asking whether or not we would attend. And how many people in my household would attend a rally on Bill 96. So I'm guessing there was a fair amount of research done with this poll to see if people intended to go. Now, I answered it as honestly as I could at that moment before realizing I actually have another commitment. They were even asking which potential dates would work best for you in this online poll. And this was sent out to, so the EPCA, by the way, is the English Parents Committee Association. There's a lot of them. I can't go. So let's do a quick poll of 3 here right now. I've got a previous commitment that day. I won't be at the rally. Aaron, you going to go to the rally?
Absolutely.
You are?
Yeah.
James Mennie?
Why are you so surprised that I said yeah?
I'm a snarky Switzerland. I don't attend demos. I don't sign petitions, and I don't endorse. I will criticize, I would hope, even-handedly every political party. But no, I'm not going to go to this thing.
Why not?
Because I just don't. I don't physically, like literally, support causes. I'm sitting here saying you get a good turnout.
That's fair.
But that's the thing. That's part of my job.
Okay.
So I am someone who is prone to showing up at protests and to, walking the walk. Not to sound walk the walk, but, when I believe in something, I will show up and show my presence. But Aaron, honestly, it kind of surprises me that you say yes so quickly.
Why?
Only because you're not someone who normally goes to a lot of protests and such.
Well, you're right. I don't. But I mean, there are not a lot of protests over these kinds of things. And I think this was important enough. And I think Jim's right. It's going to be a matter of numbers. If there are not enough numbers out there, I think this is done.
Yeah,
I want to be there.
Excuse me, Natasha, when did you get this survey?
Yeah, so I just was looking for it in my email. It is on 13 days ago, April 13th, I got it. And so obviously they were trying to determine whether the demand was there. And like I said, even asking about dates. Using
my crime scene skills, I would suggest that given the time that you got that email and the announcement, is that they are pretty sure they're going to get a good crowd based on what they're receiving from the survey.
Totally.
Yeah, and by the way, it's worth pointing out, Catherine Korakakis, who's, on this parents committee, whatever, there are a lot of groups, not just the QCGN. I think if it was just them here, we'd be looking at this and going, oh, this is not going to really do much. There are a lot of individual groups now involved in this, Jim. I think maybe that's where the difference is.
Well, listen, I hope you're right, because it's long overdue that the same people, the usual suspects get rounded up and are perceived through the filter of French language media as being the usual complainers. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say it's important to get a big crowd, because at that point, the average person, who I will assure you, I don't try to speak in generalities, but I'm pretty sure the average Francophone in Quebec is nowhere near as paranoid and psychopathic over the survival of the French language. If they're concerned about the language issue at all, it's whether their kids will get a full education and have as many options as Anglophone kids here in Quebec. But, that's between Francois Legault and whatever Francophone voter does or doesn't want to support him. But this is all that this is. This Bill 96 is nothing more than a club to beat Anglophones and non-Francophones over the head with, backed up with completely ridiculous threats like we heard today from François Legault. Okay? So the idea that, oh, well, la patrie, la langue, this, that, or the other thing is always in danger. There's always some emergency. We had an emergency for 2 years, and François Legault and company didn't exactly do a stellar job dealing with that. So maybe he wants to back up, maybe actually agree perhaps to a public inquiry into how the government handled the pandemic before he starts running around trying to scare people into, thinking that their culture and their language is under attack.
Jim, 30 seconds. Story today. Last year, the Office Québécois de la langue française said it had a record number of complaints. Haven't seen this many in a decade. And, of course, this now weaponizes Simon Jolin Barrette to suggest again that French is in peril. Nothing surprising here?
No, because you never get the fine print. They had a record number of complaints. Is it still the same number of people who are complaining? You can get 1,000 complaints. If it's 80 people are complaining, spare me. There's no crisis.
James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adama.